Welcome back to The Right Angle, and today I'm going to be going over the second of the three fundamental structures of woodworking, the frame. So make sure to stay tuned. Here we go. Now the frame can have many different types of function depending on your project's needs. Now today I'm demonstrating how to make a frame, but you can also make a web frame, which is usually used for drawer support and structure for furniture, or a face frame for face frame cabinetry. Frame can be joined with a multitude of different types of joinery, like the mortise and tenon, tongue and groove, miter joints, biscuit joints, and dowel joints. But today I just want to go over the simple dowel joint. Now, if you're interested in seeing a miter joint reinforced with a spline, you guys can check out my project-based video on how to make a frame in the description below. So make sure you give that a look, and if not, we'll move on to the next step. Now the frame consists of 4 pieces, 2 vertical grain pieces called the stiles, and 2 horizontal grain pieces called the rails. Now to save time, I've already done the 8 steps of squaring, so I know my pieces are square, flat, and cut to final dimension. Now if you're interested in the 8 steps, or you need a refresher, I'll make sure to include the link in the description below. Knowing the pieces are ready to go, we can now perform a dry clamp up. This is where I will line up the pieces accordingly and use my layout tools to mark the center lines of the pieces and the locations of the dowels. I'll also label the joints at each of the corners so I know which pieces go in which order, as well as the locations of the rabbets, which will house my acrylic mat board and backing board for the photo. So with everything labeled, we're ready to make the dowel holes. Now you can do that using a boring machine, drill press, or corded and cordless drills. But for today's sake, I'm going to use a cordless drill because that's generally what most of us are going to have in the shop. Now I know it can be a little difficult making an accurate straight cut using a cordless drill. But I'm going to show you a quick little tip that I like to use that's going to help you and has helped me to be as accurate as possible. So what do I have? I want to make sure that I've got 2 quick grip clamps, my cordless drill, obviously, and then our brad point bit. Now I also have what is super vital in any type of project is my test piece. Anytime I'm doing a project, I want to have 1 to 2 test pieces that I can practice my joinery, my finish, my rabbet, whatever specific details that I need prior to doing it to my final piece. Now, let's move on to the part where we drill. So we want to make sure with the test piece, we've already marked the center line like we marked the center line on our final pieces. We're going to put it face down on the bench, clamping 2 of the grips on each end. And then with the drill, I'm going to keep my shoulder and my elbow tight against my side, and with the clamps holding with the pressure downwards, all I have to worry about is applying pressure forward and through the piece. That is going to be way more accurate than if I were to flip the board on its edge and try to drill moving down. Here I have the possibility of tilting this in any type of direction, as well as having to keep pressure this way. So to help eliminate any of those discrepancies, I've found, at least from my own personal preference, that by putting the face of the board down, keeping my arm tight against the side, and clamping each end of the board, now all I have to worry about is focusing on applying pressure and cutting to the exact hole depth. Now I forgot to mention the most important part, which is setting the depth for the dowel. Now to do this the easy way, I just like to get some painter's tape and tape that to my brad point bit. I'm going to set that to half the length of the dowel plus a 1/16 of an inch. Now why do I want to do that? Well, by doing that, I leave a little bit of room in case any debris or glue get into that socket before gluing it up. This will allow for the joint to come together as smooth and as accurate as possible with no gaps. So with all the dowel holes finished, now we're ready to rabbet. Now before I do that, I wanted to put this in dry clamp one more time just to make sure that the locations that I had marked for the rabbet are correct. And they are. So we're ready to go. We're gonna head over to the router and route the rabbet. Now before we rabbet anything, we're gonna take our test piece, and just like we did with the drill, we're gonna do a test, making sure that we have the proper width and depth set for the router bit. Now I like to slowly raise the bit to get to the final depth that I want instead of having to worry necessarily about getting the exact measurement right away. That's why we have the test piece where I can slowly and incrementally raise the bit until it gets to the desired depth. Just another note that I wanted to make too, just for safety reasons when you're using the router table, is to make sure you know the rotation of the bit. Now on a router table, it's going to be going counterclockwise. So we just want to make sure that we're moving our stock from left to right. That way we're performing a conventional cut and not a climb cut. This will keep your guys' fingers safe and away from the blade. So now that we've got the router set to the proper depth and width, we're ready to do our start and stop rabbet, which is going to be performed with the stile or the vertical piece of the frame, because we don't want the rabbet to go the full length of the frame piece. So what I did is, by having these marks here, we've also set up 2 stop blocks to ensure that I stop at the marks that I've labeled on the piece right here. So let's route it. Alright, so now that we finished up the dowel holes as well as the rabbet on the router, we're ready for a dry glue up. Now we're going to do the same thing we did in my previous video for the panel, which is do a dry glue up. We're going to collect all the tools necessary for the process, as well as run through the process, making sure everything's aligned and in the proper locations so that we're ready for glue up. Now in this case with the frame, before I do my final glue up, I also want to do a little preliminary sanding on the inside edge of the frame, because those are areas that are going to be difficult to reach once the frame is glued up. There you have it. This is the second of the 3 fundamental structures of the frame. Now it's a very basic frame, but I hope it gets you a good idea of what it takes to make one. Now I'm going to give this 24 hours to dry, remove any excess glue, and take my chisels to clean up the inside edge of the rabbet, as well as sand to my final finish to apply the finish. Then we'll install my acrylic, backing board, and mat board, and we should be good to go. Now I hope you like this type of content, and if you do, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell so you can get similar content like this coming your way. Otherwise, I hope you had a good time, and the next video up in my list is going to be the fundamental structure, the box. So make sure you stay tuned, and I look forward to talking to you soon.